She and I have never really met, certainly never spoken to each other, despite being in this house together for 7 years. We have some things in common, not much. We were both born in 1980, although I'm older and wiser than she is. People often think we're both much younger than we really are, because we've got such great skin and good hair. And we're both known as being quite feisty. So I'm really pleased to be able to congratulate her on her elevation to Secretary of State and Deputy Prime Minister. This is a phenomenal achievement. She will be a great inspiration to young people, but particularly young women in many communities across the country. And I think that's a wonderful thing. That's the sort of Britain we are, where people who grow up from all walks of life can reach the top. It's an extraordinary story, dare I say, of conservative success. Because unlike me, she grew up under a conservative government with a welfare state that provided a safety net, a strong economy and opportunity, while I mostly grew up in Nigeria under a socialist military government that used a lot of the rhetoric that I've heard her promote when she was sitting on this side of the house. So she may not credit conservatives for what she has achieved, but we'll be taking some of that credit anyway. So I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to her on her first outing as a minister in the chamber, because it's only going to be downhill from here. You see, the thing is, I've been a Secretary of State before, and after 5 years as a minister, you learn a thing or two about government that you never can in opposition. I've been there, done it, and I can tell the Right Honourable Lady that she has been stitched up. It is quite clear that the bills and policies from the King's speech she's just referenced have not been written by her, but by the Chancellor and the Chancellor's advisors. We all know this because we watched the member for Leeds West announce them in far more detail in her speech last week. And all the stuff the Secretary of State worked on in opposition, like her new deal for workers, has been taken off her and given to the Business Secretary. So I'm sorry to tell the Right Honourable Lady that her colleagues, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and their many advisors have written a manifesto and made promises that are not deliverable, and they've hung them around her neck and said, Angie, you go out there and you sell it.
Kemi Badenoch delivered a witty yet pointed reflection on her relationship with Angela Rayner, noting their similar age and life experiences, yet underscoring a personal distance and philosophical divide. While Badenoch acknowledged Rayner's rise from challenging beginnings to Deputy Prime Minister as an inspiring testament to opportunity in Britain, she highlighted the irony of this achievement occurring within a conservative-governed society, subtly contrasting Rayner's accomplishments with the party Rayner represents. Badenoch commended Rayner as a figure who exemplifies resilience and aspiration, symbolizing how Britain can foster success across diverse backgrounds. Yet she was quick to critique Rayner's political alignment, expressing skepticism that Rayner genuinely owned the policies she promotes. Badenoch argued that Rayner had become entangled in Labour's leadership directives, advancing policies she may not have authored or personally endorsed. The speech blended praise with critique, casting Rayner as a symbol of British opportunity and resilience, yet questioning her autonomy within the Labour Party.
I'm sad to see many of her shadow team not sitting beside her as ministers. They worked for free, grinding in opposition for years, only to watch the children of the chosen ones get the ministerial cars and salaries before their maiden speeches are written. Wow.
Golden tickets.
Sue Gray was a lot nicer to me when she worked in my department. I think we know who's in charge, and it's not the Right Honourable Lady. She's been stitched up. They've made her the fall guy. They've promised 1.5 million houses by the end of this parliament. That's over 800 houses per day, and we're already 2 weeks in. And as she goes on, day after day, she's going to realise that a backlog is building and there's no way out. But I want her to know that I'm here for her. I'll be here to hold her hand and walk her through what is likely to be a very difficult time. I may even give her some tips, because having worked in that department, I know what needs to be done. I know what we should have done that we didn't do. And I know that they're going to make the same mistakes.
Kemi Badenoch took the opportunity to critique Labour's leadership, specifically targeting the party's ambitious housing promises as unrealistic and out of touch with the practical realities of government. She noted that while Labour has touted extensive housing solutions, the feasibility and execution of these promises remain dubious. Badenoch underscored the complexity of housing policy, suggesting that Labour's proposals may be more about attracting votes than delivering tangible results, thus raising doubts about the leadership's commitment to practical solutions. At the same time, Badenoch struck a somewhat conciliatory note, acknowledging the significant pressures and challenges Angela Rayner may face as Deputy Prime Minister within a party pushing lofty goals. While critical of Labour's approach, she extended a degree of support to Rayner, recognizing that the task ahead would not be easy and that the weight of fulfilling these promises would likely fall heavily on Rayner. In her comments, Badenoch managed to combine a firm critique of Labour's policy promises with a sympathetic acknowledgement of the challenges Rayner may encounter as she attempts to deliver on her party's commitments, positioning herself as both an adversary and a realist observer of Rayner's evolving role.
It's not that 1.5 million homes by the end of this Parliament is unachievable. It's that it's going to require the sort of systemic change which they are not ready for. I know they're not ready because of how they voted in the last Parliament and how they campaigned in their own constituencies. I'm not going to read out the long list of all the cabinet members who've been opposing planning in their backyard, including the housing minister. Many of them have been thinking that they get into government and concrete over lots of Tory constituencies. 3 weeks ago, just 15% of the Greenbelt was in Labour constituencies. Now it's 50%. They aren't Tory constituencies now, they are Labour. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would say, yes, they are Labour. They are Labour. I would say to members opposite, they are now your voters and your electorate, and you're going to have to tell them that you're going to do something that many of you promised locally that you would never do not that long ago. But it mostly won't be the problem of the cabinet, who will look after themselves. It'll be the backbenchers, all those bright, shiny faces I see sitting behind the Right Honourable Lady, who are really excited to be here. They haven't started getting those angry emails we've been replying to for 14 years. Many of those voters on whom their narrow and slim majorities now rely will be writing to them. So in the spirit of sisterly support, I'm going to let her know what's going to happen over the next few weeks and months. And they're looking so nervous right now, I can tell. They look very nervous. Let me tell the Right Honourable Lady, she's going to get a period of consultation that's going to take this long. And then she's going to have to respond to that consultation, and that'll take this long, assuming that nothing goes wrong with either of those processes. So we reached December, January, 6 months have passed, and that is 10% of the Parliament, where you haven't built any extra homes. So at this point, she'll be running 500 homes behind the target every single day, and they wouldn't have started building properly.
The struggle to achieve systemic change in housing policy has become increasingly evident, with past voting patterns reflecting a reluctance or inability to back transformative reforms. This historical backdrop, coupled with the party's repeated failure to meet ambitious housing targets, has created a widening gap between Labour's promises and the outcomes voters are seeing. As a result, Labour faces a mounting challenge: managing the expectations of a growing base of constituents who are now demanding swift and impactful action on housing expectations that stand in contrast to the party's previous stance and pledges at the local level.